Let's get back to one of our other main stories this evening. And Germany has reacted angrily to claims American intelligence agencies monitored Angela Merkel's mobile phone. Speaking as she arrived at the EU summit in Brussels, the German Chancellor said trust needs to be restored between allies and partners. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by the German political expert Nina Schick from the independent think tank Open Europe and the Daily Telegraph columnist Coughlin. I'll come to you first, Nina. Explain to us why the Germans are so outraged by this revelation.
Well, this is tremendously important politically because we're talking about the most important European leader and arguably the most important female politician in the world, and she's being spied on by an ally. Now, this is bound to raise the German heckles because you have to take the German context into regard when discussing this. Germans are notoriously touchy when it comes to data protection. I'm a German, I should know. And this is no surprise given the recent history with the Nazi surveillance state and then the East German Stasi state. So it's an issue that is tremendously sensitive, and once they hear that their beloved chancellor is being spied on by an ally, it's going to cause a furor, and it has in the press, amongst the politicians and amongst the public.
Coughlin, are you seeing this as a bit of faux outrage? Should Germany be surprised that the US is spying on one of its biggest allies?
Well, I think the problem for the United States with this particular scandal is that the Americans have broken the first rule of espionage, which is don't get caught. And I think most intelligence services around the world are charged by their respective governments of procuring intelligence to protect their own national interests. And in recent years, we've seen, under Angela Merkel, Germany pursuing a very distinctive foreign policy, both in terms of its approach to the recent crisis in the Eurozone and also its approach to global conflicts such as Libya and Syria. And there has been a very distinctive German position on these issues. And of course, other governments really need to know what the Germans are really thinking, because it could really impact on their own fortunes.
Nina, how would you respond to that? Germany says the US are and remain our best friends, but as Con was saying there, they're not always in tune with each other, and Germany does tend to go their own way on issues like the Euro crisis and on Syria as well.
Well, I agree. I mean, to a certain extent, all these governments are aware that there is spying going on, and the fact that they got caught out is a little bit of a boo-boo on the American side. However, the more important question now is what will happen next. There has to be a certain amount of public gesturing by the German politicians. As I already mentioned, the political atmosphere, the public sentiment in Germany wouldn't allow for anything else. But interestingly, the most important thing of this is that it could actually have tremendous implications on the UK. Now, why is that? Well, the EU and the US are currently in the midst of negotiating a free trade agreement, the TTIP agreement as it's known. And this has not only completely hijacked the agenda at the current European Summit Council meetings, where David Cameron is trying to present a very good agenda on cutting Brussels regulation, making the EU more competitive and more efficient, which is a shame. And secondly, because now the UK could also be implicated, guilt through association, because everyone knows that the UK and the US actually share intelligence. And I know, for example, that an Italian paper will be doing a big splash tomorrow on how the UK government spied on the Italian government. Now, that isn't bound to go down well on the continent. And thirdly, because if there is a freeze in the transatlantic trade agreements going on between the EU and the US, as countries like Germany and France, as they've already been doing now, call for those talks to be frozen whilst they get some provisions for data protection and privacy, that could really affect the UK because the talks have become fundamental to the UK's membership in the EU.
Well, it could affect the UK, Nina says, Coughlin. We are hearing reports that documents show that the NSA monitored 35 world leaders. So could it be possible that Britain's Prime Minister could have been monitored?
Well, of course it could be possible. I think it's probably unlikely because Britain does have a very close intelligence gathering relationship with the US, as Nina just suggested. GCHQ at Cheltenham works very closely with the NSA. We're joined at the hip. And also the Prime Minister talks regularly to President Barack Obama on issues of mutual interest. So, I mean, they may well, if they've got the Prime Minister's personal phone number, tap in to see what he's saying to his Chancellor, etc. I doubt it. As for the other 35 world leaders, I mean, I'd have thought I could probably think of quite a few world leaders that we should be listening to. I'd like to know what Vladimir Putin is thinking, for example, before he goes to the UN to discuss Syria. And I think, as I said earlier, it is a fundamental duty of our intelligence services to find out what other governments are thinking and how they are likely to act, because their actions will impact on our own interests. So it's a pretty vital operation. And as for a rift developing between Britain and Germany, I think that will blow over. Remember, David Cameron did spend a jolly weekend with Angela Merkel. The two families shared a weekend earlier this year. And they are trying to work together on reforming the EU and other matters. So in terms of a rift between the UK and Germany, I think that this particular storm will blow over.
OK, well, Nina, I just want to put that point to you. Con was saying, though, that he might like to know what Vladimir Putin is thinking. Perhaps Angela Merkel would like to know what he's thinking. Germany does have its own intelligence service, the BND. Is it not conceivable that they're operating in a similar vein to what we've seen the US doing? They certainly have spoken to the US before about information gathered by the NSA.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that in a way, it's almost a moot point, because no global leader is going to exchange sensitive information on their telephone. I mean, they're pretty aware that that's not a safe channel to exchange information. However, of course, Germany also has its own intelligence services, but as I already mentioned, this has a lot to do with the German context in specific, and why there is a public outcry has a lot to do with German history, and politicians have to be seen to be acting in the face of this.
OK. Nina Schick from the independent think tank Open Europe and the Daily Telegraph columnist Con Coughlin, thank you both very much for your time this evening.
Pleasure.